thing you need to do is decide, as we said with software. I mean, pretty much we use Logic, kind of with Ableton for doing little tricks and stuff like that. But actually open up Logic for the first time for us. We started off as when we got back into it. We opened up the software and tried to use it, and you just hit a brick wall straight away. You're like, oh my god, I can't even get a kick from my samples out onto the platform and actually start the loop. Basically, that's what we were like 4 years ago with Logic, I'd say.
I remember when we bought the Mac, originally it became the most expensive ornament in your house, didn't it, for a couple of years?
Yeah, it was like sitting with the decks and stuff like that. But I think it's one of those things. At the moment, there's so much stuff on the internet where you can watch videos and there's so much information to be got. So getting off straight away is, once you open up the software, is getting your head around it, and that's going to take a bit of time. And you've got to realize it's one of those things that you've got to put in that like hardship at the start to get, like, I mean, basically now when I go into the studio on Monday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, I walk in my shorts and flip-flops, got a wicked studio, soundproofed, I turn on Logic, and basically I'm plugging into my drug that supplies me with everything I need for the rest of my day. But that's what it is to me. I absolutely love doing it, and it's taken us to get there to a point that my Monday morning is now the most joyous time of my life. I love walking in. I keep reminding myself that I could be going into an office or doing anything like that. But again, when I turned Logic on, it took months, if not more, to even start to be able to get loops working properly and layer sounds, and it's really hard work. But when you start off, I'd advise going and doing some sessions with an engineer. Like straight off, go in and do 2 or 3 sessions with someone, so you can see, just rob stuff from them, see what they're doing, see how they're importing stuff, see how they're looping stuff together, and that really will help you get going. And as well, feed yourself with information off the internet. Watch like YouTube videos over and over and over. Pause them, go and do it, press play again, go and do it, you know, that kind of stuff.
Well, I imagine it. I was just going to say, actually, the whole sort of having so many tutorials on YouTube nowadays is just, it's almost like puts it on a plate for you, doesn't it, really? Because if you just sit there and you're like, right, how do I do that? You just Google it and there's a video for it.
We dedicate at least 2 hours of our week searching out new tutorials every single week. Every single week we do it, and we find new stuff. And you don't need to, once you've learned the technique that you can see from anything, you can twist it into your own technique, and it comes from then, and then you build on top of that. And I mean, it's just one of them. You just got to really be open to searching for stuff.
Yeah, I guess we sort of take a step back as well. If you wanted to, you know, once you've made the decision you want to make music, I mean, how much research do you reckon you guys put into getting the right kit? What sort of kit you went for? Is there just like an industry standard? Like everyone's, you know, it's like you DJ and everyone has a set of 1210s to start off, you know, back in the day. But
it's a learning process from when you start. Like I started on Fruity Loops, which is pretty basic, but there are massive producers out there getting a huge sound on Fruity Loops, you know. Then I moved on to Reason and Ableton, and I just think for me, when I started using Logic, that just suited me as a producer. Just the screen, the way everything's laid out is just nice. The automation's fantastic, which I can't get from Ableton. I just don't think the automation's quite as good. You don't get the curves like as in Logic, you know. But again, I mean, it's fine because you can use Ableton for creation processes, because it's very good to get ideas down in Ableton. And I know what a lot of producers do is actually get the ideas in Ableton, maybe bounce them down as audio stems, and then mix them down in Logic, you know, simply because I just think it's a nicer way of laying things out, you know.
I was just going to say as well, though, we're starting off MIDI control keyboard. You do not need to. I mean, I know I always read all the time, everyone, like, you need to buy an amazing keyboard, and all you need is a MIDI control keyboard. Now, you can pick them up really cheap. And to start off, unless you're classically trained, Reese is a classically trained pianist, and he's able to play amazing riffs.
Yeah.
It's a massive difference. I mean, we were all producing separately, trying to learn our skills, but when all 3 of us came together and brought our different skill sets into it, all of a sudden something happened, and it was like, oh, this is it, you know what I mean? Whereas like the likes of Reese and Luke can work on an idea and send it to me to the other studio, and literally I can sit for like 2.5 days staring at it until it's a track. You know what I mean? Whereas
Yeah.
like you need that as well, just that stubbornness. I mean, even last week we were working on a track. We just done a track with Peyton. He's an amazing vocalist. And at 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, I was like, right, we're scrapping this. It's not good enough.
Really?
By 7 o'clock, it's the best track we've ever done. Right. So it's like, it's that kind of an emotional, like, right, it's not working. And then all of a sudden, you, instead of giving up and leaving and going home to watch EastEnders, sitting in there and actually putting your head down and going, right, make it work, make it work. Things don't always work. You could try one idea for like 4 hours, and then all of a sudden, at the end of that 4 hours, something happens and you've got a great idea, and it's like, wow, you know what I mean?
I think you guys are a bit lucky though, because you've got a trump card in Reese being classically trained pianist.
Well,
Bit of a head start.
There's a lot of people now that like aren't classically trained. There's a lot of you can find MIDI stems on the internet. There's always ways around it. If you want something bad enough, you find a way to do it. You know what I mean?
I suppose the next question was going to be, I suppose it's just, you know, how much skill do you need to have? Do you need to be musically, you know, have studied music, or is it just, can you pick it up? Or
obviously, myself and Reese, we've had a bit of a musical background, but when I first met Fran about 5-6 years ago, Fran couldn't even send an email. He couldn't turn on the computer. And now, I'm not just obviously saying this because he's my business partner, but Fran's learned, and it's just your dedication, your perseverance. And Fran now, you know, some of the big producers in the world are asking Fran what to do, because he's sat there, he's become a fantastic engineer and understanding how sounds work. And the thing that helps us is Fran's got a detail. He goes into so much detail. Like me and Reese will think, oh, that's brilliant, that sounds good, that'll do. And Fran's like, no, it's not right yet. We still need to do some more work. So, again, yeah, it's just dedication.
I think the thing is as well, with producing, don't be afraid to make mistakes. The only way you actually push yourself forward is by doing it wrong 20 times. 30 times, and then on the last time around, something will become apparent as how you can get more out of a certain unit, or you move your units around into a different balance, and all of a sudden you start to learn how they work. The only way to do that is literally spend every waking hour sitting in front of the computer doing it wrong until all of a sudden it becomes right.
I was just going to say on that, actually, I learned quite a lot from when I've been producing stuff. Sometimes when I've not really known how to get a sound I've wanted, I've literally dragged a song in, like just an already produced song that I know sounds good, drag it into my my project, and I will literally just A and B sounds and try and copy what other people's sounds have actually done, just so I know how they've made it, and then I can maybe use that technique elsewhere in another track, or maybe that I'm going to produce myself.
Yeah, I'll echo that. That's how I learned.
Every single track we ever start, we have 3 or 4 tracks from other people's tracks that are there that we reference.
Yeah, I always keep it at the top. The first channel is always a reference track, not to completely clone it. But if you can get the sound close, if that's the sound you're actually going to go for, and you've got something to reference it to, and you can use it as a reference to get everything as close as possible, and then put your own twist on it. So yeah, it's a fantastic way of working, you know, and maybe you've got 3 or 4 tracks to reference to, and then and if you can get, you know, within 90% of those tracks, I mean, you more than often enough, we've got a banger then, you know.
I was going to say, you know, apart from having all the YouTube videos and all that, I mean, are there places that you can actually go and learn how to? I mean, there are classes. I mean, a genuine question, because I've never made or gone near production myself. I've got Ableton and bought that about a year ago, and every time I open it, I run away. It's just a bit terrifying. I mean, is there a place that I could go to and learn?
I'd say up till about 5 years ago, I've been using engineers and like going into studios, so I had a kind of general knowledge of how to do it. But opening up a software yourself and starting off, the first time I opened Logic in my house, I turned it on and I spent 2 days trying to do it, and I got so frustrated with myself that I couldn't do it. I put it back down again and thought, I almost admitted defeat, and it took me a couple of months again to actually go, right, I really need to do this now. But again, it's just, I think it's persistence and how much you want to actually do it, really. Even as you get good, even as your skills start to grow, every couple of months, it's pretty good to go and do a session with another engineer that's good, or another, because the thing is, you get ideas all the time, but sometimes when you go and you work with someone else, something becomes apparent that you wouldn't have thought, and then again you twist it and you turn it into your own idea, and it's how your ideas keep on growing. But I think as well, I'd say one of the main like cautionary things I'd say when you start is grow patience, which
Yeah.
I mean we kind of lacked at the start. We used to finish tracks that weren't good enough, and at the time we thought, these are great, and whack, you start like you finish a track. And like the next morning you'd email it out to everyone, you know what I mean? Now like when we finish tracks, sometimes we leave them for 2 or 3 weeks and we go back and we ponder over it and we take our time, because every single time you go back to it, your ears will have changed, the dynamics will have changed, and you hear something you haven't heard before. So I'd say like don't fall into that trap of producing something, not being sure if it's good enough and pressing send, because the minute you press send you can't recall. And the thing is, what happens is if you get too many tracks that are sent out that aren't to the right quality, all of a sudden, when you do get really good, it's very hard to turn the tide. Very hard to turn the tide on that situation. You know what I mean?
I suppose if people then, you know, they hear a song by you guys, I suppose, and then they will hear that it's not quite up to scratch. They'll hear another one. They'll see your name come up again, and then
this is a true story. 4 years ago, our now manager, I rang him to try and get him to take us on, and he told me to leave this industry. He told me because my name, I had no future, because I wasn't, you know what I mean, I'd worn out my name.
That's
so,
nice of him, yeah.
No, I mean, but the thing is, this is the harsh reality of what can happen. So from taking this person, I sat down and I went, right, how do you move forward from that? And that's how Futuristic Polar Bears came up, a whole new idea, a whole new reinvented from a different angle. And now, like 3 years later, we went back to him, and the same guy is now taking us on, and he's been absolutely amazing in helping our career. But it's a sign you've got to learn how to take some knocks on the chin. You're going to be told it's just one of those industries. Everybody won't like what you're doing, but you just need to like what you're doing yourself, and take the no's with a bit of graciousness and go, do you know what, objectively maybe I don't agree with what they're saying, but can I take some good from it, and how do you move on? So do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, can I just ask where the name came from?
I'll answer. Shall I tell him the real reason or the new version?
The real reason?
Do you tell the real reason, then I'll tell the new version.
I can't quite remember. I think I basically was going through a point that I think my girlfriend thought I had, what do you call that? Bipolar. She thought I was bipolar because I wouldn't leave the studio, and I sitting here tormenting myself trying to get music to work. And she was like, I was being very moody. So we were watching a wildlife program, and it was like, Futuristic Polar Bear. It sounds crazy, and I thought the name was like, it's the weirdest thing. And I rang him up and I said, look, I've got this name, and he went, mate, get a grip.
But since then, I mean, we get asked this question a lot. So what we've also done, which is, you know, helping out the environment, we've actually joined the World Wildlife Fund, and we actually sponsor a polar bear, and we named it after one of our favourite producers. We called it Manuel de la Bear, after Manuel de la Bear from Hot Fingers, so that's where that came from.
That's amazing. So I hope that some proceeds of every record that you guys sell does go towards that polar bear, right?
Yeah, we're a monthly subscription we pay. They send us updates, and we get a cuddly little polar bear that Fran's daughter's got. So yeah, it's a good, all good cause. And one day we want to play in the Arctic. That'd be a good gig to do.
If anyone's up for that, we got Brynner here. He's a bit of a planner. Make it happen. Listen, I mean, it's been 3 years since you guys came together, and obviously a bit of a kind of a self-plugger. You've been engineering tracks for. We've got written down. We've got Chicane, Armin van Buuren, Cedric Gervais, to name but a few. And you're releasing records on Southern Fried, one of my favourite records. That's Fatboy Slim's record, right? Yeah. I mean, how did you guys all meet? Was it just a random meeting in a pub and you decided you want to make tracks?
Me and Luke met in London maybe 6 years ago at a party, and we just kept in touch, and obviously got involved in an early venture which was Audio Damage Records with Kid Massive. And from there we just became best mates and decided we were going to take this journey together. Which we did, and then, well, we say by chance, but I don't really believe that happens by chance. We were down in, which way is it? Swansea. Yeah, we were in Swansea doing a gig, and we met Reese, and he was doing some stuff with other people, and we had a conversation, and we just done a remix of a track called Circus Bells. It was one of our favourite tracks, and we'd literally just come out of the studio that day, and I came out to the car and I played it to him, and he was like, oh, that sounds off silent, and he was like, oh, it's deadly, and I was like, wicked. So we had a really good night, and then about a week later, I just woke up one morning and I went, right, we need to get that guy Reese to be one of the Bears. So I rang him up and I was like, do you want to be a polar bear? And he went, what are you talking about? But as it came about, we all literally bring elements to each other that we don't have by ourselves, as in with sourcing ideas, musical elements. Luke is just unbelievable at running the business side of it.
Yeah.
And again, with me, I just love being left alone, the dark studio, making things work at the end. You know what I mean? We now try not to send out tracks until we've heard it in 2 or 3 different clubs and different sound systems. But as in, we engineer for people like 4 or 5 days a week now, so it can't always like that. But we've got to a point now where we know our speakers that well, and we have our different speakers, we tested on that. We've come to a middle ground that we know when we've got a good sound. Though I will say, we do have 5 or 6 top DJs and producers that we send all our tracks to that tell us what they think before we send them to anyone. And if they pick up on something, again, objectively, you look at it and you go back. But I just quickly was saying about earlier on, just bring it back. If you don't play instruments, I wouldn't let this stop you anymore, because there's session players for like 80 to 100 quid for a day will come into your studio. You'll tell them what you want. They'll play the sound and leave you with the MIDI. And it's another way around, because I know loads of top producers that can't play a single note. Yeah. But there's always ways around it. So I wouldn't. Yeah, I was like, as producers, I mean, I think me, as in Reese, we've only been in the same room as Reese in the last 3 years about 6 times. We work on Skype. Literally, we spend every day on Skype. Our studios are synced up with each other. So basically, I've got the exact same setup in my place, his place, and we spend the whole day on Skype going back and forth. So again, whatever way you can find to get it to work.
So you've really got to put in the graft to.
So mate, I'll be truthful. Some days I go into the studio at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'll come home at 11 at night. Once you really get into producing records, going out with your friends doesn't really seem as deadly as it used to. It does. I mean, to be honest, don't get me wrong in this. I mean, obviously it's great to have friends, but at the end of the day, I prefer to have a really fat kick drum and a rock and bass. And like, do you know what I
mean? I can't add any more to that. That's it's right.
Okay.
And I mean, I don't know. It's probably the same with you guys, but I think my friends have actually accepted that I just kind of disown them now for my studio. It's just they've kind of got used to not seeing me now. So
yeah, fair enough. So basically, once you've got the track and you've spent all those weeks coming backwards and forwards to it, and then you're like, yes, this is it. What's the next step? I mean, how do you get it out to the labels?
Yeah, we've spent a couple of years trying to figure this problem out, and. A couple of what we did was, first of all, we started to look at what kind of labels we wanted to be signed to. So that obviously then kind of dictated what music we'd be writing. So we picked, we researched through Beatport, because Beatport's obviously one of the main places to buy your music. So we looked who was regularly getting features on Beatport, what labels were currently in the charts, and literally spent a week finding all the labels, finding the websites, finding the contacts. But instead of sending a track straight away, we always send an introductory email first, just to explain who we were, and just to see where to send the demo, because labels get inundated. I mean, we own a label, also manage another 2 labels, and we get sent so many demos a week. And a lot of them sometimes are just literally a SoundCloud link going, listen to this.
I was just going to say, with a lot of these demos, sometimes you don't, I'll be truthful, people don't go through them all the time, unless it's a name they recognise sometimes, because you just don't have as much time as you'd like to do it. So that initial bit of getting to a point of one, you need a product. That product needs to be a tune that's good enough, that can hold on a club sound system. And then 2 is the next bit of actually trying to get someone to listen to it.
Well, I mean, there's lots of ways to get him to listen to the track. And what we do then, we decided, instead of going, right, I want to be signed to the top 20 labels in the world, which, is everyone's dream, we picked 3 or 4 labels and went, right, we want to start building a relationship with this label. So you get to know the manager, you get to know the A&R manager, you get to know the producers that are on the label as well. So you all start building relationships up with people, which is a key thing in this day and age. With the big labels, they get inundated with so many demos a week. Literally, with the top ones, you've got one chance to get it right. So what we did is, we wouldn't go for the top label straight away. It's good to start building your catalogue of tracks up, start building your network up with some of the smaller but credible labels as well that, will take a listen to your demo, will get back to you. So you start building your portfolio of records up like that to working, your quality up to the bigger labels when you're ready to make the step up.
So you just taught something there about mastering as well. I'd always recommend, even when you get good enough that you're starting to get good, once you're starting to get good again, go in with an engineer a few times, bring in your track as good as you can get it, and bring it in and upload it and see what he does to take it from where you are to the next level. That is the best way to learn how to get from good up to there. I mean, we did it ourselves. We went to someone, we'd finished tracks, and they were a very good quality, but we go into an engineer and he'd bring them from there to releasable tangibly. When you send it out, you're going to get email back from a few different labels that are interested in it. But again, patience. I mean, for example, EDX's label Pinkstar, 2 years ago we said we want to be on EDX's label, and for the last 2 years up until this month, they've listened to all our material and they've said no. Until 4 weeks ago we've just signed with them, but it took 2 years to get the sound exactly right for their label. And it's that persistence, and every time they see your music growing and getting better and better, they'll eventually come around to a point of going, they'll take something from you. But again, it's don't take the no's to heart. I think that's one of the hardest things you have to get over, is basically knowing that it's not personal. Whoever send them back the email on the other side, even if they've answered it and they're not taking it, they're probably themselves don't want to be rude. Do you know what I mean? It's not a personal thing. It's just everyone wants quality records for the label. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose my next question could be along the lines of how long is a piece of string, but if you try and identify the transition from actually finishing the record to it being released on a label, I mean, what sort of timescale are we talking about?
The longest one we had, we covered Paul Oakenfold's Southern Sun record back in, was it 2010, Fran? Yeah, 2010. Yeah, we finished it in 2009 to go and get the clearance through, obviously Paul Oakenfold himself, which thankfully, he listened to the version and he cleared it. To go to Universal and to get their clearance publishing took a year.
And do you know the problem is when it takes a year, when that record comes out, a year ago it was the best work you've ever done. A year later when you listen, you're like, oh my God, it's just not as good as we are now. And it's going out. And I mean, you've got this is a regular occurrence. Sometimes it takes 6-7 months for a record to come out. Last week we were working on a track at 3 o'clock. I was about to bin it. I Skyped him and went, you know what, I can't make this track work. And then by 7 o'clock, it's probably our best track we've ever made that's been signed to a huge label, and they're talking about making a video for it. That was the difference between 3 o'clock and 7 on Sunday last week. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, again, it's just perseverance. And again, with Skype, me and Fran will have a chat and we'll just go through the track in detail. We'll talk about what we want to achieve from the track, make a list of everything, and then we decide on how we can actually make it work, So yeah, it's talking as well, and just creating ideas in your head.
And again, it's one of those things. Obviously, it's good for us. We've got 3 people, but you need to try and network some sources of people that you rely on their skills, not necessarily always as a DJ, but someone that produces to really tell you, because most of your mates will just tell you, yeah, it's good. You know what I mean? They did for us for quite a time, but you need someone that's objectively looking at it, and not like, I'm not saying you want people to criticize you, but objectively look at a project and tell you if the kick needs to be fatter, if your bass needs more balancing. I mean, we've just done a track with K-Class, and we finished it like 2 months ago, and I've just gone to mix it down the other day and ended up spending another day and a half on the mix down, clearing up the whole bottom end of the track. And that day and a half now has taken it from a good track to unbelievable track. But that was like 8 weeks in the difference between a project that 8 weeks ago sounded fine. Going back to it again, you're like, ooh, apparently you can hear things that you couldn't hear before. So
do you think it helps to have a slight OCD with this then?
It's it doesn't go astray, but then again, it's just I think when you're getting into this, you want to have a picture in your head of where you want to be. You want to set goals, 6-month yearly goals, and progress progress boundaries for yourself to see where you're going to be and to gauge how you're doing, because you know, if you want to start having a product ready in a year's time, if you're still not getting there, you want to address, maybe I'm not going about it the right way.
One thing we did which helped us, me and Fran in our studio, we had a vision board. And we made it was about 2-3 years ago, wasn't it? We put it together.
2 years ago now, mate.
And
of labels that we wanted to assign to and what basically is associated with it. Like.
And literally I had it every day, and yeah, because not every day the studio goes well. Like some days, you know, you can't even do anything, so you go home. But, you know, we sit there, we've got the vision board, so whenever you're thinking, I need to give up or I can't do it, quick glimpse of that, and, you know, you can see your goals and what you want to achieve. And it's really inspired us. And what we did then is we had the board, then we broke down, you know, yearly targets. And then with the management, we sat down and we've done 6 monthly targets, monthly targets. And it's all them, if you set yourself them small goals, you know, you can achieve them for, you know, for your overall
I think as well,
goal.
A bit plays into this, do you know what I mean? Don't be scared if you've worked on a track I mean, we have points where, like, I mean, a couple of months ago, we had a whole backlog of tracks and we sat down, again, being objective about this. Are they good enough? Are they this? Are they this? Talking about it. And we ended up sacking like about 10, 11 tracks. We just went, nah, they're good, but they're not good enough. Yeah. So being objective about your own, sometimes it's hard to be objective about your own work because you've made it. But it's one of them, you've got to think from the outside, right, is it going to be good enough for that? You know what I mean, as well.
This thing, I mean, don't be scared to experiment. I mean, when we sacked off a load of tracks we ended up, you know, not using, we still learned a lot of things from in the studio, yeah. So yeah, don't be scared to experiment.
And I think as well, when you're actually working on a project, as I said, you could do 10 tracks, but when you've got that one idea which just instantly, we all listen to and we say, that's the one, like it happened with us this week, you come up with a riff, and from even 1 or 2 listens, you just know straight away it's going to be a hit. So maybe it's worth, you know, maybe if you've done 10 projects, just get 10 ideas together, pick out the best 2, maybe sack the rest off, you know, and when you've got the very best of your work, you can go ahead from there, you know.
I guess maybe also, I suppose if you try and road test tracks, would it be an idea to road test tracks, you know, in DJ sets and see what the reaction is? Is that way? Is that something else you could factor in? Is that worth doing?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's the only way you're going to be able to tell sometimes outside of your studio what sounds good, because something could sound good, and then you go and you mix it in a set in a club, and straight away you can tell the dynamics in the track aren't right. There's something, there's not enough bass, there's too much top. It becomes very clear very quick when you've mixed out of a big record and you go into one of your records and straight away you're going, whoa, that's not quite holding the way I expected it to. We were playing in Lush in Northern Ireland about 2.5 years ago, and we just finished a new track, and there's like 2,000 people in the club, and we dropped one of the new records we just finished, and instantaneously there was too much stereo width on it, and I hadn't monoed the main vocal track, and it dropped into the breakdown. You couldn't hear any fucking vocals. I was like,
so Fran's literally shouting at me, going, "Get another record, quick!"
Like, Jesus, you know what I mean? And then straight away you're like, so I mean, in between you just finished an amazing set, and all that's on my head is like, oh my God, I can't believe what mistake have I made? And straight away you're back in the studio and you're trying to figure it out. But then once you do figure it out, it won't happen again. You know, as I said, you're going to make mistakes. And it's how you use, they're not really mistakes, they're learning curves. I mean, that's the way you have to look at it, you know what I mean?
I mean, this may sound like a stupid question, but would you actually have to go and road test the track in the same club to make sure it's the right, you know, the same sound system, it's all set up the same?
No, well, I say all sound systems in clubs are always slightly different, the room's dynamic, yeah. But I mean, we didn't realise as well, a lot of club sound systems are in mono. They're not stereo. Yeah. So what happens is when you're making a track and you've got too much stereo in your track, half the track disappears in a mono sound system. It's just like, it's unbelievable. So as you're making a track, you have to keep a mono switch and keep going back and forth between mono and stereo to make sure when it does spread, you don't lose loads of your track in the mix. It's like, again, it's just another hurdle. And at the moment, there's a tendency where all people's finished masters are just unbelievably loud. Just it's crazy how far they're pushed. And for the likes of Dirty South and Axwell and stuff like that, they're getting the tracks mixed down monoed. All the channels are monoed,
Yeah.
and it's getting that massive sound, but it's very hard to do. So don't be disheartened if you drop one of your tracks after like a Dirty South or an Axwell and it's not quite there yet, because at the end of the day, even people that have been producing for 15 years are striving every single day to try to get that sound. But the thing is, every time you're getting closer and closer and closer, you know what I mean? You're getting there, you know what I mean?
I suppose that's that side
Not
of the,
getting disheartened, I suppose.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that side of trial and error then is so important. If you hear something's not quite right, it's not something that you can, I guess, be taught. You just have to, or at least, I guess, make a note now of that kind of thing is something to really factor in.
I don't think it ever stops sometimes for me. Even when we finished a record that's done really well, we've just like one of our records at the moment, it's been in and out of the top 10 in Tracksource for like 9 months. And again, when I hear that out, I can pick faults. I'm like, oh, that bit, you know what I mean? And it's been like, it's done so well for us. But as a producer, I think it's one of them you'll always be able to find something that could have been better or should have been better. But again, it's taking that into your next project. I'm not sure if that ever goes away. I mean, we've one of the tracks we've just done with Fatboy Slim. It's been one of our biggest records to date.
Yeah.
And even when I'm playing it, I can still hear stuff wrong with it. And that's like, we've got a video from Norman Fatboy Slim playing it in Miami to like 40,000 people going crazy to it.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the video going, oh, that cymbal could have been.
Sometimes I think you just got to let it go a little bit, yeah? Amazing. I mean, it's fantastic you guys are releasing a track with Fatboy as well. I mean, that's, quick plug, that's out next month, right? Yeah. There we go, 5th of November. Lovely stuff. If I just go back to that first track, getting the first track out there, I think, maybe Luke, you can answer this one, mate. It's just how much, I guess, of a time scale should you leave in between once you've actually got the track done? How much time should you give yourself to build those rapport with the record labels, with the individuals at the labels and other DJs, I suppose?
I mean, it takes quite a lot of time. I mean, as well, don't be disheartened if you don't get a reply within, a couple of days. We had, we have offers that come in now for tracks that we've signed months ago. It's just when people get round to listening to them. But you can usually get responses from some people in the first kind of 3 or 4 weeks. But again, it's just building relationships. As I said, the smaller labels will get back to you, a lot quicker. And they might take 2 or 3 tracks off you. They might say, right, we like that one. We'd like to do another few things with you. So it depends. Smaller labels are usually a bit quicker. Larger labels, I mean, we still don't get responses from half the labels we send stuff to. It's just how it works sometimes. And another thing is we always have a couple of people, DJs, that we always give the track to, that we know we're going to get some good support from it. And
I think it comes on as well. With like obviously having your own label or your own platform for being able to put your music out as a fallback to be able to help. You know what I mean? Or if you're signing to record labels that aren't coming out every 6 or 7 months, if you have your own label, you can have a monthly release or a bi-monthly release all the time, so you've got some sort of material coming out, you know what I mean?
I mean, that's very key for obviously starting off as producers, to try and get as much, quality content out there as possible. I mean, you look at the big guys now, they might only release 2 or 3 tracks a year, but when they were starting out, if you go back through their catalogue, they were releasing a lot as well. So that's a key thing, is to, in the early days, is to get as much quality out, as you can. Obviously not overdoing it where you're releasing something every week, but 10, 12 releases a year.
The thing is as well, man, but we'll say that the likes of like Nicky or any of them now, they've got massive tracks dropping every month at the moment, mate. Like huge tracks every month, you know what I mean? So the whole mindset, sometimes we always disagree about this, whether 3 or 4 big tracks a year is enough anymore is debatable. Do you know what I mean? I mean, do you know what I mean? It is whether it's going to be enough to get you where you want to go. But I think the main thing to remember when you're starting is just do it because you absolutely love making music, because at the same time the money will come from when you get good enough because you loved it, and it's that love that'll take you through all the pain and the hardship of the rejections and all the rest of it till you get to there. You've just got to absolutely want to do it from the bottom of your stomach, you know what I mean? We generally make our living from engineering for other people now that we've put that much work into it, and obviously our music is doing what it's doing for us, but you've always got that objective of where you want to be in a year's time, where you want to be the start of next year. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, it just comes down to you've got to absolutely love doing it, and it's got to be probably, I'd say, if not the most important thing in your life, at least the second and the third.
Yeah. Well, listen, boys, McClaz, Fran, Reese, Luke from Futuristic Polar Bears.
Thank you very much,
It's been really interesting, guys.